Hi everyone and welcome back to Sprinkle with Paper. Today I'm going to be sharing my tips and tricks for layering vinyl. So it's really easy to use vinyl when you just have one single layer, but anytime you have at least two or more, it can start to get a little tricky. So today I'm going to be sharing how I prepare the design in Cricut Design Space to make it easy for layering, and then I'm also going to show you a few of my little tips when I actually go to layer the vinyl. For today's project, we're going to be making a St. Patrick's Day wall sign. So the supplies needed are going to be some type of sign to put our design on. And I found this little truck at the Dollar Tree and it was only 50 cents. I thought that this would be perfect to add a little St. Patrick's Day scene onto the back of. So I'm going to be using all the colors of the rainbow for my vinyl, in addition to a sand color, gold, and black. We'll also need measuring tape, ribbon, weeding tool, scissors, transfer tape, and then also some parchment paper. So now that we're over in Cricut Design Space, I'm just going to start by making a little mock-up of my little truck sign. So I'm just going to simply go over to the Shapes tab, and I'm going to click on a rectangle. And then I'm going to unlock it so I can resize it. And the base of my truck is going to be 7 by 2.25 inches. And then I'm going to make the top of the truck, which will be 5.5 by 2 inches. And then we're going to duplicate this just one more time so I can make the middle section of the truck, and that will be 6 inches by 1 inch. So now that we have a very rough mock-up of our little truck, we're going to start adding our design. So one of the first things I would like to add is some type of little banner. So I'm just going to go over to Images, and I'm going to type in St. Patrick's Day banner. I'm just looking for something that says luck or lucky, or just looking for an empty banner where I can add my own letters. So I can't find one that says luck or lucky, but I did find one that has 5 different slots that we can just add lucky into. So I'm just going to select that one, and then I'm just going to resize it so it's going to fit on the tailgate of our truck. And then we'll just add our letters of lucky using the text tab. So I'm just going to type out lucky. And then I'm going to change the font to one of my new favorites, which has been BFC Foxy. I feel like this font just works great for so many different designs. Now I'll just resize and ungroup the letters. And then I'm just going to place one letter on each part of the banner. For the rest of this design, I would like to have a little rainbow, a pot of gold, maybe a shamrock, and also some type of little leprechaun. I think that will be really cute. So let's start with the rainbow. Next, we're going to add the pot of gold. And I'm just looking for a basic black pot with some gold coming out of it. And then before I add this pot of gold, I'm just going to change the color of our truck mock-up just so I can get a clearer view of how all of our colors are going to blend together. So I'm just going to make this a lighter gray to represent the silver of our actual sign. And then we don't actually need the whole pot of this pot of gold. We don't need the bottom portion of it because we want it to look like it's coming out of the back of the truck. So I'm just going to line it up so I can see exactly how much I want to take off of this pot. And then I'll just go over to the Shapes tab and I'm going to grab a square. And then I'm just going to layer the square over the portion of the pot we don't want. Hide the gold since we can only slice 2 layers, and then we are going to click slice, delete those extra pieces, bring back our gold, and then we're going to layer it over on top of the rainbow. Now I'll just change the pot of gold to black, and I'm going to search for a shamrock. So I'm just going to pick this basic shamrock right here, and then I want to layer a horseshoe over it. So now I'm just going to search for horseshoe. And this one's actually perfect because it has the horseshoe and the shamrock, so I think I'm just going to use this one instead. And I think I want the shamrock over on this other side, so I'm just going to ungroup this design, and then I'm going to flip the shamrock. And yeah, that looks a lot better, kind of fills in the space better. And I'm just going to change the horseshoe to match the color of the gold in the pot. And then let's go ahead and look for that leprechaun. So I think what I'm going to actually search for is a St. Patrick's Day gnome. I think that will probably be an easier design to cut out. So let's search for that. And I'm just looking for a really simple design here. So I'm just going to choose this gnome right here. And then I'm going to resize it so it also looks like it's kind of popping up out of the back of the truck. And then I'm going to slice off the bottom just like I did with the pot of gold. But really quick, before slicing, I'm just going to hide the gnome's beard and little hands and nose because I don't want those to be cut off. I want those to actually be hanging over the back side of the truck. So we're just going to hide those pieces and then we'll cut off the rest of the gnome. And then we will just delete those pieces, bring back the beard and little hands and nose. And then I'm going to change the color of the beard to an orange because I feel like that's kind of a more St. Patrick's Day leprechaun look. And now I'll just go in and rearrange all the layers to make sure that they're in the right order. And then the last thing that we're going to need to do is we're just going to need to delete our mock-up of our truck. And now that we have our design completely made, I'm going to show you how we can easily set up this design for cutting and for layering. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over and we're going to grab a square from the Shapes tab, and we're just going to make it nice and small. It really doesn't matter what size this shape is. It doesn't even need to be a square, but I find that a square works the easiest. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be keeping this little square in the same place for every color of layers that we're going to be cutting. So then when we go to layer it onto our project, we'll have a focal point where we can line it up and make sure that every layer is being positioned onto our project in the same exact spot. So when you're positioning the square onto your design, it really doesn't matter where it is. It just needs to be in the consistent spot for each and every layer. So to make sure that it's always going to be in the same exact spot, we're going to use the position tab. And I just center it kind of like on the design where I think the center is. And then when I go to the position tab, I just round up or down. So for this one, I'm going to change the X to 7 and the Y to 0.5. And now I'm just going to duplicate this little square and then move it down to the corner so it's kind of out of the way. We're just going to save that for later. And now I'm going to start working on preparing all of my layers. We're going to start by hiding everything over on our layers panel except one color. So I'm going to hide everything except our little square and everything that's green. And once I'm left with only the green pieces, I'm going to highlight everything, including that little square, and I'm going to click Attach. So now when we go over to make it on our cutting page, the green layer is going to cut exactly how it's shown. The placement won't change at all. So we're just going to be repeating this for each and every layer. But before we hide this green layer, we're just going to move that little square that we had moved to the side. We're going to move it up and we're going to layer it over the green square. And then we are just going to make sure it's in the right position. And then now we can just hide the green and we can now bring back another color. So this time I'm going to bring back all the letters, which is going to be that charcoal gray color. And before I attach all of this, I'm just going to duplicate that little square and move it to the side again for our next layer. And then I'm going to highlight everything and click attach. Now we'll move on to gold. We're just going to duplicate the square, line it up, make sure it's in the right position. And then we're going to highlight everything and click attach. And we're just going to keep continuing this until we have all of our layers done. And once each of the layers has been attached, then I'm just going to bring everything back and then we're going to be ready to cut it out. So now that we're over here on the cut page, if you just go through each cutting mat, you're going to see that everything has been lined up exactly where it needs to cut. So we have our little square, that's going to be the focal point, and then we are also going to have our design. And so when we cut this out, everything will line up perfectly. So now that all of our pieces are cut and weeded, we're going to start applying our transfer tape. And I did notice that I made a little mistake, so I'm just going to cut off this green banner here and I'm going to apply it later on because I would like the green banner to be over the beard, and I can't do that with the way that I have everything layered. But that's the great thing about crafting, is that sometimes you just need to switch things up a little bit and it's perfectly fine. So we're just going to cut off that banner and then we're going to apply our transfer tape to the top portion of our green design. And then using our transfer tape, we're going to apply the green layer onto our little truck. And we're just going to make sure that we also include that little square. So it's going to stick up a little bit, which is fine. We just want to make sure that it is attached so then we can line up the rest of our layers. And now for our next layer, this is where those little tricks I was talking about are going to come in really handy. So we're going to apply our transfer tape just like normal. But then this time, we're not just going to place this right onto our design. We're first going to take that parchment paper and we're going to cover up all of the design except that little square that we made. And so then now when we go to place this onto our truck, we're going to line up that square. And then once that's fully lined up, we're going to press it down, make sure it's secure. And then we're just going to slowly start taking off that parchment paper. And we're going to be laying down our design and smoothing it out as we go to make sure that everything is nicely lined up. And now we're just going to repeat all of these steps for all of the different layers. So we're going to be applying our transfer tape, and then we're going to use the parchment paper to cover up the design minus the square. And then we're going to line the square up. And then we're just going to slowly pull back that parchment paper and smooth out our design. So now when applying the gold, I realized I made that same mistake as I did with the green. So I'm just going to apply the gold into the bucket. And as for the horseshoe, I'm just going to save it for later, and I'll figure out exactly where I want to place it. And now we're just going to apply that green banner, and we're not going to have that reference point square, but that's okay because this isn't quite as necessary to be in the exact spot. We're just going to kind of eyeball it and put it where it's in the little leprechaun's hand, and then kind of going over to the other side. It's not quite as important as all the pieces of the leprechaun and the rainbow, so this wasn't really that big of a deal. And now I'm just going to add the horseshoe. And I actually just ended up putting it in the spot where it would have been originally. So I could have just put it on the first time, but that's okay. I wanted to be sure with the placement. And then the last thing that we're going to add are just all of the letters of Lucky. So I'm very happy with how this turned out. I think that it's going to look so cute hanging inside my wreath on our front door. And now that it is completely done, we can just take off those little squares and they just pop right off. And then I'm going to add some fun ribbon and it will be complete. If you have any questions about today's video on how to layer or anything that we went over, please just leave them down in the comments below. I appreciate all of you sticking around for this long video. If you are still here, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting.